Okay, there is our notification to get started. So thank you for joining us today. As you can see, we are recording today's session for educational and quality improvement purposes. They are on our Canvas page as well as our YouTube channel in case you want to go back and watch that. Echo, as if anybody has not joined an Echo session before, we are an interactive community. So please put any questions or comments into chat. Please change your name with your name and where you work or your discipline, so we can all see who you are. Turn on your camera. It's a great way to just build that professional network. Again, I always do a plug for case narratives. They are a great way to get information and ideas from all these amazing people on the call. So if you're interested in doing a case presentation, please reach out to us. As always, remember to protect individual privacy, so avoid using any identifiable information. De-identify any situations. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to one of our amazing Hub team members. They all have an asterisk in front of their name. We've been on Zoom for a while, but in case you don't know how to rename your profile, you can do it by either clicking on this profile or the 3 dots by your name. A way to raise your hand. You can always put that into chat or just also come unmute and Bailey will monitor that for us. In order to get a credit for attendance, we do require you to fill out the survey. Thank you to everybody who has filled out those past surveys. We'll put the survey link into chat in a while, but the link will also be included in a follow-up email. Canvas is where we store all of our information. So if you ever need to request or you can't figure out how to get onto our Canvas page, you can send us an email. There's also discussion boards on Canvas. It's just another way to connect with other participants on this call. Case studies, again, just a great way to hear different recommendations, share information about real life situations. So if you're interested, please consider doing that and reach out to us. We do also have social media, so a Facebook and Instagram. We share resources on there. We talk about our upcoming sessions and anything else. So if you've not done that, take a minute to follow us. I hope that everybody noticed on the email that I sent out today that we have had a change in topic today. We are going to be talking about autism just because it is an autism and awareness, advocacy, and acceptance month. The ADDM network, so the Autism Disability, Developmental Disability Monitoring sites, just released their 2022 data. So they have found that 1 in 36 children are now diagnosed or identified with autism spectrum disorder in 2020. As you can see, that Utah is one of the ADDM network sites. So some of the information that CDC shares comes actually from Utah, which that is really exciting. We've been part of the network site for the past 10 years, I believe, is how long we've been on one of their sites to collect their surveillance data. A few of the things that we did find in 2020 was that COVID impacted when we are identifying kids. There are wait lists, kids were not getting seen. So some of the numbers were not as similar to what we've had in the past. A few things about Utah specific data. So as you can see, the sites, the tracking sites where we track data is in the Salt Lake, Davis, and Tooele area. And the one thing that I found very interesting is that for every 2 children identified with ASD who were 4, there was 1 child who was suspected but not confirmed to have autism. So we are doing a job of identifying children, but we are not getting to the point of really diagnosing them. And what that always does tell us is that sometimes when we are not doing those diagnosing of autism, we're not getting those services out. So I think we still have some work to do in Utah to make sure that we are identifying children specifically with autism. We are also one of the lower states in identifying children. So we still, while we're doing great at identification and getting that out, we still have a lot of work to do that. I'm really thrilled today to introduce 3 amazing families that are going to share their story, their lived experience about their process through autism. So I'm going to stop sharing. We have, I'm going to introduce Lisa Hall is going to be our first family that's going to share their story. Then Toni Nielsen will share her story. And then that next one will be Nicole, and she will share her story. So Lisa.
Can you hear me, Janelle?
Yep.
Okay. So like Janelle said, I'm Lisa Hall, and I live over in Brigham City, Utah. My son, who was diagnosed with autism, is turning 18 tomorrow. So it's been a long, amazing journey. But we were with Janelle in the Up to 3 program, and we got Bradley diagnosed right before his 2nd birthday. And some of the things and signs that we were noticing is he didn't really make eye contact, and he didn't ever really answer to his name. And so we were concerned about that, but really didn't know much about autism. And it was actually my mother-in-law who had mentioned something to my husband and I about possible autism. And thank goodness that we were okay and open to that suggestion. Because had we not started early intervention, I don't know where my son would be. But we took all the kind of necessary steps. We met with our pediatrician, who, you know, was amazing at kind of directing us what we should do. We first got his hearing checked. That came back fine. Because, you know, where they don't make eye contact or don't answer to their name, we thought, oh, is it a possible hearing problem? But we got that done. That turned out fine. We went down, I believe, down to the University of Utah, had some genetic testing done. That was fine. And once that was cleared, they sent us to a psychologist to meet and to get him diagnosed. And it was so long ago, and I can't really remember his official diagnosis from that first psychologist, but it was under that umbrella of autism. And me being the worried mom, wanting a second opinion, I believe we went over to Utah State at that time and visited with, his name was Dr. Odell, and kind of got a second diagnosis. And again, it was under that umbrella of autism. I think they called it PDD NOS, I think.
Yes.
So
that's at the time what it was called. Yes.
Yeah. And so pervasive developmental delay. And so he was diagnosed with that. And I think because of that diagnosis, we were able to start that Up to 3 program with Janelle, which again, I'm so thankful for, because I think Janelle, in helping teach Bradley, was also my therapist and having to kind of come to terms with having a child with special needs and what I do next. But we finished that Up to 3 program, and he did great. And again, because of his diagnosis, we were able to start with the school district soon after that in their early preschool learning. And so he started early preschool, where he went a couple of days a week. And again, so thankful for that. But I felt like it wasn't enough. I think he was only doing that twice a week. And so I did some research, and I think it's totally different now, the way they do it. But I had to hire a lady who was getting her doctorate from the University of Utah in special education. And I hired her, and I hired a couple of students that were going into special education over at Utah State. And this lady from University of Utah drove down, met with these girls, trained them in ABA therapy. And we started a very intense therapy at home where he was meeting with them, I think morning for 2 hours and then evening for 2 hours on top of doing his early learning with the school district. But again, I think it's different now. I think that is offered, but I'm not sure, because my son's a little older now, so I don't know what services are being offered out there now. But then after that, and doing that ABA therapy, and I think he did that, our home ABA therapy, until about 5th, 6th grade. And then he was doing so good that we took him off that and just had him go to school. But I was getting frustrated with about the time he hit 5th grade is when I got frustrated. I remember going into his class and going to a parent teacher conference and asking the teacher, okay, where is he? What can we do at home? How's he doing? And the only thing he said was, I would ask about a test score or his reading. And he said, well, you know, he's Bradley. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean that he's Bradley, you know? And so I was frustrated because I think they, at that point, were letting him coast. And I understand they've got, I don't know how many kids in the classroom. It's hard to have 25 to 30 kids in the classroom and give my one a little bit more attention. And I understand that. I don't think we were given an aide at that time. And so we decided to move him over to a charter school because the classroom size was smaller and he was able to have an aide. And just meeting with the lady who ran their special education department over there at the charter school was amazing. And so again, that was the right decision for us. He thrived over there, but then we decided in 8th grade to move him back so he could go to school with his brother. And again, it was a great decision. From that school and the high school, junior high and then high school, he was in Ed for Success, and he had great special education teachers who were wonderful as far as just their drive to help him, their willingness to help him, and then their willingness to communicate with me and let me know what's going on. Because I was one of those parents that I wanted to be involved. I wanted to help him from home. But over here in the Box Elder School District, I have nothing but good things to say because of the teachers that, like I said, they just did an amazing job. But yeah, that's a little bit of background on Bradley. And then Janelle wanted us to talk about a couple things, you know, what you wish providers knew. And I was like, okay, educational providers, medical providers. And I didn't really plan a lot on medical providers, but I said a little bit that I was really impressed with our pediatrician and his sensitivity. And again, his willingness not to just brush it aside, but to direct us in the next steps of getting him diagnosed, getting his hearing checked. I really felt like he was on top of that and worked well with us in helping Bradley getting diagnosed. I wanted to talk more on what I wish the educational providers knew. And I understand that all of these kids are very, very different when it comes to their autism diagnosis. You know, it ranges from mild to very severe. But in Bradley's case, you know, he was pretty mild and he was slow when it came to communication. And he does stim a lot, which kind of takes over his mind. But with that, just because, you know, someone or he lacked in that communication doesn't mean he's not smart, or it doesn't mean that he can't understand. He, like I said, he's so smart and can understand so many things. It's just that being able to get it out and communicate it to us or his teachers is the problem. But, you know, we as a family, we had expectations for Bradley at home and also with his education, and we wanted him to progress. And that's why, again, in 5th grade, I was getting frustrated with the teacher that just kind of wanted to slide him by instead of making him do these things that he was fully capable of doing. You know, we wanted Bradley to have educational goals just like all the other children and students in his class, and, you know, to do his best to meet those educational standards in the classroom. And again, like I said, he was very capable of rising to these expectations that we as parents and we as teachers or his teachers had set for him. And again, we wanted those teachers to have those expectations for him, just like we were having at home. And, you know, for the most part, they really did. We ran into a few, like I said before, that it was just easier for the teacher and to say, well, let's get him moved on to the next grade. But I'm really, really grateful for those teachers that did challenge him and did expect more from him. But I guess I just want, you know, I want the educational providers to know that these kids are amazing and capable of that growth and development. We just need to, like any other kid, set goals and challenge them because they can do it. She also wanted to talk about some successes and barriers. And a few of the successes were, you know, the teachers that we came in contact with, or who we had, who were dedicated and flexible kind of is that key word there. I really appreciated the teachers who were willing to change how they did things in the classroom to help Bradley be successful. I love the teachers who communicated with me and with my husband and kept us in the loop. So we knew how we could help him out at home. Maybe there were some behavioral issues in the classroom that we could also work on at home. So those, you know, hopefully were less and you know, less and less and far between. But another thing is, you know, we love the teachers who asked us, what is the best way to teach Bradley? What are his triggers? What motivates him? And we just appreciated the teachers who did their best to get to know him and how best to teach him. One example is a teacher, and I cannot even remember because it was back in 8th grade what subject she was teaching, but she realized soon that he struggled with test taking and being able to sit down and read the question and be able to answer the question. And so she is the one that came up to me and said, hey, what do you think of coming in before school and having Bradley take this test orally? And I'm like, that's a great idea. I think he would do so much better than that, than sitting down, having to do it by himself and almost having to redirect himself, which probably wasn't going to happen at that time. And so we did. We went in before school, took the test, and he ended up being so successful in that class just because that teacher was so willing to find a way how to teach him. And again, so grateful and appreciative of that teacher. Some of the barriers were, again, probably the opposite of those other teachers, were the ones who were unwilling to be flexible and to bend to the needs with kids with disabilities. And then it's funny because those teachers really lacked in communicating with me. And another example is this teacher just being the polar opposite of the other teacher. I asked him, I said, what do you think of having him take this test orally? And he just was so unwilling to change how he did things. He's like, no, I just don't have time for that. And then I would try to communicate with this teacher saying, Kate, can you give me the study guide early? I want to study at home with him. It takes him longer to study for tests. If I can break it down into little sections, I know he could be successful. And again, just didn't get that communication, never got that study guide early. So those were some of those barriers that we struggled with, is just that teacher being unwilling to be flexible. But that was a small percentage. I would say 90% of the time teachers were amazing. And so at least in our experience, I know that's not for everybody, but again, I really felt like the teachers over here in this school district did an amazing job with my son. I think another thing could be those financial barriers, and that was back in the day when like I said, I think they offer ABA therapy through insurance now. I think. Am I wrong, Janelle? Do you know?
They sometimes do, but it's still that financial barrier is an issue.
Yeah. You know, that we hired that lady down from the University of Utah, and we paid the students from Utah State, and that was all out of pocket. You know, insurance wasn't going to cover that. And so luckily we were able to do it, but there is that financial barrier. If you do not qualify, you know, for that ABA therapy, sometimes you kind of have to do stuff on your own. And I remember they did have a program over at Utah State. I can't remember what it was called. Janelle and I were just talking about it the other day.
The ASSERT program.
The ASSERT program that we tried to get Bradley into, and that was after up to 3. And he didn't get into that. And so we had to find our own way, and it was all out of pocket. But all in all, again, we really haven't had too many barriers. And maybe it's because, like, you know, I'm not patting myself on the back here, but we also were very on top of things with Bradley, and we advocated for him, and we did our best, again, to just make these teachers know that, or help these teachers understand that we were invested in Bradley. We wanted him to be successful, and I don't know if because of that, the teachers and everybody that we worked with were just amazing at helping him be successful. And so we were all on that same page, but I was very involved from the very beginning, letting teachers know that I'm here, I want to help, what can I do at home? So I don't know, I'm assuming that helps the teacher be a little bit more motivated to help your child, but you know, he's turning 18 tomorrow, he's doing great. Janelle remembers, I never thought he was going to even talk or say 2 words, and he still struggles with his communication, but he was on the mountain bike team this year, took 1st or 2nd in a couple of the races. He was able to get his driver's license because that's what he wanted. And so again, I never thought this was even possible, but I think for the most part, I've been really, really happy with how things have gone on for him.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. After everybody, all the families speak, I'll open it up to any questions. So our next one up is Toni Nilsson.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I am really excited to talk to you guys today, just because early intervention has like changed our family's life over the last year. Just a little bit about our family. We have 9 kids, or sorry, we have eight children. That's not an announcement. We have 8 children in our family, 7 boys and 1 girl. And I homeschool my children too. So our story, I actually have my oldest son, who we believe is probably also on the autism spectrum, but we didn't really know a lot about early intervention, and we were a little more of the mindset of we can figure this out by ourselves, and he will grow out of some of the things that he's dealing with. So watching him grow up and the struggles that he's had that he really didn't grow out of, we decided right from the start with my youngest son, Charlie, that we wanted to do things differently. So this was definitely a huge, huge mindset shift for me. But just a little bit about Charlie. Like I said, he's the youngest of 8. And when I had him, I felt like I was a new mom again, because he rocked our world. And our family jokes that he came last to our family because it takes all of us to keep him alive. And that like really was the case, especially up until just recently. It literally took our whole family to keep this wonderful, lively little boy safe. I could tell something was different with Charlie right from like the second he was born. We had a little bit of trauma with his birth, and I remember just holding him and looking at him, and I just felt like something was different. And right from the beginning, like we just did not connect like I did with my other children. We had a hard time nursing. He had a lot of sensory issues right from the beginning. Sleep was non-existent. At night, he would startle, he would do the startle reflex, but that lasted for months and months. So I would sleep next to him, holding his hands down next to him. And we did that for months so that he could actually sleep through the night. And someone was holding him all day long. Like our family was pretty much exhausted, but I would joke that he was everybody's baby because him and I just really didn't have that, like that mother-son bond. He was just as happy with someone he saw in the grocery store. They could hold him as much as with myself. So that was like kind of an early indicator that I noticed with him that things were just a little bit different. So as he grew, he became very, very active. So as soon as he could walk and crawl, that's when we were like, whoa, this kid has a lot of energy. He, around a year to 18 months, he started being able to open our windows. He would jump out, shimmy down, and he was gone. So he was kind of our flight risk child. We had child locks on every single door. We had every single window had window locks on it. And we even like kind of joked, but it was pretty serious that we wanted to have like a GPS tracker on him just in case he did get far away, because he could also climb. So he would climb the fence and he would just jet. So he didn't have like that awareness of boundaries as far as, excuse me, like this is my home. This is where I want to be. I need to stay here. He didn't have any of that, even as he started to get older. So, and then probably the biggest thing we dealt with that was kind of hard was, I think a lot of sensory issues. He would get overstimulated and then he would melt down and screech. So he had this like pterodactyl screech that he would do that would be like hours. Like he would be screaming for hours every day. And we would all be frantically trying to figure out what he needed, what we could do to help him. But because he didn't really have any words, then he didn't have a way to communicate back to us. And so it was just, my entire family was in a really high stress situation. So about the time he turned 2, he went in for his well child check, and they did just the routine screen, the autism screen. And at this time, he did have some of the signs that indicated he might be autistic. And our doctor suggested that we do the screen and also reach out to up to 3. And at this point, I was like, oh, finally, yes, like you're listening to me. And I adore our doctor. He's amazing. But we had been talking about all these things along the way, and me just saying, I'm kind of having a hard time with him. This is what he's doing. And just, hey, let's see if he kind of grows out of it. Let's wait and see. And then finally, when we had that, oh, let's test for this, I was like, yes, some validation and maybe a pathway forward. So we did do an autism screen, kind of a, like, I guess like a baseline one. And Charlie came back as maybe, but on the very high functioning end, they weren't seeing a lot of strong indicators that he could be autistic. He was diagnosed at that time with sensory processing disorder. But and this is one thing that, I guess if I jump over to what I wish providers knew from the medical side of providers, is that sometimes kids don't show the symptoms like straight across the board. And I don't really know how to explain that very well, but like Charlie didn't line things up, and he was good at making eye contact, but he was so rigid in his routine that if we disrupted a small part of his routine, we were done for the day. So we had some things that if our pediatrician maybe was in our home and was visiting with us for a little bit, he would see more that we dealt with on a day-to-day basis versus like what a test would tell him. And also Charlie was really good at taking the tests. He loved it because he was in a quiet room and it was new toys and it was fun for him. And so he did a good job. He was good at taking tests, I guess. So that was probably my big thing about what I would love for our medical care provider to, if parents express a concern, like really, really listen to them, because we had some things going on that he wasn't going to see in an evaluation. But let's see, back to, so 2 years old, he got his recommendation, and we did go ahead and start with up to 3. And after his evaluation, we were able to start working with an occupational therapist, and we learned so many amazing things from both of them. We had Caroline and we had Devin, and Charlie loved both of them. We had so much that we learned, like the deep pressure techniques and things like that, like changed our life like almost right away. It was amazing how that helped him a lot. And we worked with a speech language pathologist. So we worked with Kearney, and she was amazing. And it was fun to see Charlie's progress as we went throughout the year. When we first started working with her, he was maybe saying 10 words, no sentences, nothing. And he wasn't replying to us. So all of his communication was just things that he wanted to say. So we were very like, he was in his world and we were trying to kind of get into his world and communicate with him. So we worked with her once a month and we really enjoyed that. We also worked with a nutritionist for a few months. One of his things that he did was Charlie would eat foods that were white, and just white foods. So he was selective on the colors of foods that he would do. So we worked with our nutritionist for a few months and started introducing new things, and he was able to expand his list of foods of what he enjoyed. He also had a funny thing where if he did eat food, it would be off of my plate. So he had to be eating my food off of my plate. If I tried to put my food on his plate, he would still come back to my plate and do that. So that was something else that we worked on and made a ton of progress with. He's a really good eater now. He does a good job. It's not perfect, but we're really happy with where he's came over the last year. We were lucky to work with Janelle. That was amazing. It was awesome because I loved the mentoring model that all the therapists did, but she taught myself and my family how to be able to work with Charlie better. And we all learned so much. With my kids at home, they were able to be there for a lot of the visits. And then, or if they weren't, I would talk to them about things afterwards. And our whole family implemented it together. And where they were home with him a lot, it helped to kind of have everybody on board. And I also worked with a therapist that was provided by Up to 3 for me. And that was definitely like not something I had planned or even knew was available. But I really benefited from that once I kind of got out of my own head. It took me a minute to be like, okay, I can do this. I can talk to other people. I can reach out for help. But working with our therapist, Jeannie, was amazing. She was able to just let me work through things. Like Lisa said, like you do have to kind of go through a mourning period of what you thought things were going to be like. And she was great with all kinds of things. So I loved the support that we had with early intervention, addressing our whole family, and especially supporting me, because when I first came in, we were all we were like barely surviving. We were definitely in a high stress mode. And it was nice as the months went on and we settled into it, and to see the progress that Charlie was making and the things that we were learning, how our stress level just started to go down and we could function so much better. When I asked my husband if he had any thoughts to contribute, he said, and he was not here a lot, he works out of town, but he just mentioned, he's like, I noticed that he stopped screeching so much. And that in itself was like a huge win, as we were able to just know how to help him and understand him, and how things that we needed to change too. We learned some awesome things. Just a few things that we loved as a family that really, really worked good for Charlie was things that helped him organize his brain. So definitely like physical activity was huge for him. And then we did some really cool things. We did activity schedules so he could move the pictures to what he was doing, and that helped him a ton. We did the task boxes with Janelle. This was her idea, and they were just like the little activities that Charlie could do, that we would do with him, but the goal is to get him to be able to work on them by himself, so I could have a little more time to work with my children and start to increase his attention span. So that was a huge, huge hit. I love too how all the therapists worked together on all these things and contributed like their own ideas to the things that we were doing. So there's like a lot of really good synergy between our whole team that made it like super successful. We were like the golden team. It worked really well together. Let's see. I mentioned what I wish the healthcare providers knew about just digging deep and not just taking, results off of a test. And I think that that's really important for everybody. Some of the things with Charlie were hard to see unless you've spent a little bit of time with us. And when you do, then you're like, oh, okay, now I get what you're talking about. And so I think that's important. And I think also, like, I wish all my providers knew that, like, our up to 3 or all of our therapists knew, like, your guys' support was huge to us. Like, you were like literally my lifeline for a year. So that was really, really important to our family. Let's see here. And it was also nice to see other moms in the ABC classroom where Charlie would go in, and to realize that, like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that has to deal with things that are a little bit different with my child. And it was also really rewarding to see the progress that each kid made throughout the time that they were there. So we'd have new moms come in after Charlie had been in for a little bit, and I'd be like, you've got this. Like, when we first started, he wasn't talking, or he didn't want to sit for the activities, or, the first few times he screamed, but then we got to the point where he loved it. And it was neat to see him grow and the other children grow too. Let's see, some of our barriers. So we are not really in the school system yet, so I don't really have a lot of barriers as far as how that goes. We're just barely now into the preschool that is offered by our county, and that so far is working amazing. He loves it and he's thriving there. And I think a lot of it is just because he was used to the structure that we had in Janelle's ABC classroom. And then we really prepared him with we used a social story to prepare Charlie for actually going to school. and riding the bus and meeting his teacher and all of the things that he would encounter during the day. And this was his speech therapist's idea, and it worked so well. We had a little bit of a rough start, maybe the first 2 days, and then after that, he just knew that that's what we were going to do, and he really, really thrived there. So we don't have a whole lot of barriers as far as school, but some of the barriers I know I encountered just personally were I needed to learn how to be a more consistent mom. And that was a skill that I would try to work on over the year. And I'm definitely not perfect at that, but now I do know that it is something that is important for Charlie's success. And also just implementing good structure and good routines. Let's see some of our successes. So Charlie went from being almost nonverbal to now he speaks in full sentences, and he will comment on things that are in things. He will interact with our language a little bit more, which is really rewarding to see. And his growth in that has been amazing. His the meltdowns and temper tantrums went from hours a day to now we get them maybe a couple times a week, and they're really short-lived. So that's been really rewarding to have that change. I mentioned food. We definitely have increased our variety of food that we'll eat. This is something that is going to take some more work with him, but we're happy to be heading in a good direction with it. As far as being a flight risk, that has also significantly decreased. Now we can go outside. He will say to me, "Don't go in the street, don't go in the driveway." And so he knows he doesn't jump out of windows anymore, and he will stay close in our yard. So that's a huge benefit that we don't have to watch him like quite so closely. We're still working on public places. He is definitely happy to just run and go anywhere in public places. So that is something that we're still working on that, but he is improving on that. Let's see. We have a little bit longer attention span. The screeching is almost non-existent now. And he is really, really good at routines. He actually thrives off of routines. So that's been an amazing success. Like I mentioned, he's doing amazing in preschool. He loves it. And we are currently on the assert wait list. So we'll see how that goes. But we're just really happy to be where we're at. Like, it's not easy still. I think it's never going to be easy. But I feel like now we have some tools, we have resources, we have a support system that we are able to move forward and give him what he needs more. And I think like the best thing, and I mentioned this to Janelle, is like, I feel like I actually have a bond with him now. And it took a while. It took a little over 3 years to get that, but I'm really happy that him and we have that now. And so that's probably been like the most important thing to me. So yeah, that's our story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Toni. So I'm now going to turn the time over to Nicole, and she will share us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I get to talk about my little Ford. He is just a little over 2 right now. So a little bit about him is he is an IVF twin. It was our last round. We said, if it works, great. If not, we're moving on. And we got pregnant with twins. So he has his sister who is younger than him. And then he has, I have an 11-year-old son and then a 7-year-old daughter as well. And he was completely like, everything went perfect with the pregnancy. I delivered at 37 and 37 weeks, 2 days. He was 7 pounds, 2 ounces. He got stuck. They had to vacuum him out, but that was about it. He and I bonded almost immediately. He was on me and he only wanted me. That's probably, looking back now, that's probably one of his little red flags. He hit every milestone. It was really about 11, 12 months old. We had family pictures, and then we also had family over for like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And when people were over, he could not regulate himself. He was so upset that there were other people in his space. And I just thought, oh, he's just a COVID baby. He hasn't been around people. We just need to introduce him to more people. And I watched his little sister. She would get upset too for like a minute or so. And then she was able to, oh, these are nice people, and interact with them and smile and be okay with people being in her space. And my husband and I were like, that's a little abnormal. We'll just work on it. And then we also noticed he would get super hot when he was around people, like to the point where we would have to strip his clothes and put him in a dark room and try and calm him down that way. It wasn't just a little crying. It was, he would just get so hot that he could not focus or do anything. So from December to about April, we just started noticing little things, like he was in his own little world. I remember we were playing outside and one of our neighbor's dogs came into the yard, and I pointed it out, and his twin was like, oh, doggy, woof, 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 you know. And the more I pointed to the dog, it was like the more the blinders came on, like he did not want to look at this dog, and you can't make me look at this dog, kind of a thing. It was also like he stopped progressing verbally as well. He didn't have a huge regression. He was saying mama and dada, and babbling, but it was like he just kind of stopped progressing verbally and understanding expressive language. And it was my husband who actually said, I think he's autistic. And I went to Utah State. I have my doctorate in audiology. And so I had been around some autistic kids, and I have friends who have severely autistic kids. And so my only experience is these kids who are like nonverbal, don't like to be touched, you know, extreme cases. And I was like, no, he's not autistic. He's fine. He's just a COVID baby, kind of a thing. And what actually, it's kind of funny, what actually solidified it for me is we went on a family vacation to St. George, and there was a pool of water, and we were going to go swim, and he literally jumped out of the stroller and started running towards the water, and like, no fear, just jumped in. And luckily I was there and caught him. And I had remembered one of the professors teaching about autistic kids, how a good amount of them love water, and that it like, he's autistic right there. Anyways, and I know all kids are different, but it was just, that was my aha moment. So after that, my friend was like, well, if you have concerns, go to your pediatrician. And also, like, my son did up to 3 for some speech stuff. And I had learned about up to 3 in my program, but I didn't remember about it, you know. And so I did go to my pediatrician and voice my concerns. And I actually had the opposite experience as the other 2 moms. I was kind of brushed off. Sorry. He makes eye contact. He's babbling. He doesn't look autistic. There was no, okay, you're concerned. Here's a screening. Sorry. here's a screening tool, or call up to 3. There was nothing like that. And luckily my friend had said, hey, call up to 3. And so I called in May, and the lady who took my phone call, she was like, they're meeting tomorrow. Can I ask you some questions about your son? Because if I can get it, they review cases once a month. So if I can get all these questions in, they can review your case tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So we sat down and took the questionnaire, and all these questions they were asking me, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I didn't realize he wasn't doing that. He wasn't playing imaginary, like with imaginary games, and he wasn't answering the telephone like his sister and stuff like that. Like, I think I kind of had blinders on. So they evaluated him. They came out, they were so amazing. It was like so fast, like just let's get you in. We started with Janelle, we started with an OT and then a SLP. And my son does not really like people. He's very attached to me. So one of our biggest hurdles has been being okay with people coming into our home to get him to do these things. He's really okay with our occupational therapist. He's getting better with Janelle. He knows that Janelle's gonna make him do things. So he's still a little weary of her, but he would not work with the speech language pathologist. So we kind of evaluated, and we added Janelle's ABC class and then got rid of the speech for now. And the ABC class has been amazing. I think that's one of the things that have helped him a lot. He's okay with kids being by him now. He's okay going to parks and being around people. We can have actual people in our home, and he does not get super hot or frustrated. He now just kind of, okay, you're in my space, and is fine with it. He's aware of them, but he won't interact. So we're still working on that. So that's kind of some of our barriers. Some of our successes, he started out nonverbal, and now he's over 50 words and word approximations, because we kind of found a way to get that joint attention. He loves songs. And so we sing about everything we do, going up the stairs, down the stairs, washing hands, bathing. Janelle has helped us with all of those routines, just making it fun for him. So he wants that joint attention. We are on the waiting list for a CERT. And I've been going to a CERT parent night classes, which has been awesome to meet other parents and connect with them. And then also the classes also help. They touch on a couple of like activities and things that you can do and give great PowerPoints and stuff like that. Some of our barriers is, well, the pediatrician, he's been great up until that point. And I actually didn't know that there is a universal screening program. That was going to be one of my suggestions. Could there be a screening tool or a referral or something like that? Because I didn't get that. I also kind of wish that we just got Ford diagnosed. I wish there was kind of a binder. So Utah State, what we did for one of the students' thesis programs was, after your kid gets diagnosed with hearing and stuff like that, the state actually sends you a binder of all of these resources that the state provides, and everything like that, answers questions, how to read an audiogram, all of this stuff. I wish there was like a binder that up to 3 or your pediatrician or something like that could give you and say, hey, here's where you can get him tested, because the wait lists to get even tested can be extremely long. And some of them are not considered or some of them are not under insurance, so you have to pay out of pocket, which is totally fine. But a pamphlet or something like that would be super great of all of the resources that the state has. I also really wish that after up to 3, that there was kind of like a ABA therapy program from the state. There's so many ABA companies, but all of them have a 1 to 2 year wait list. So after up to 3 ends for us in December, he hopefully will qualify for the special ed program through our school system. But here I'm sitting here, what if he doesn't qualify for that? Sorry. I'm still in the middle of all this. What if he doesn't qualify for that? What if I can't get him into ABA therapy? What do we do? Kind of a thing. So those are some of the barriers that I'm looking at. Even if he does get into the special ed program, is it going to be enough? Because the gold standard is ABA therapy. Are there other therapies that we can go about and do? And I know Janelle and I will sit and talk about this, everything, but those are just some of my barriers of, I kind of live in a more rural area. So to get access to these big companies, some of them are not in Logan. They're in Ogden and other places where I would have to travel a lot. So anyways, those are just some of our barriers, but anyways, I think that's all. I'm sorry for the tears.
Everybody will understand that when we talk about our kids, it is a tender-hearted moment for sure on everything. I appreciate the 3 of you taking the time to share your thoughts and your information with us. I love that all of you are on different stages of that journey within it. So thank you. I'm going to open it up for about 3 minutes to have anybody either put questions in the chat that you would want follow up on, or just come on mute and ask anything.
Thank
Nicole,
you so much for sharing with us your journeys. And my name is Susan Dickinson. I'm with Southeast Early Intervention. And I just wanted to go back to the last mom whose question was, what if he doesn't qualify for special education through their testing? I would encourage you to see where he could have more testing, where it could pinpoint more the areas where he has problems. Maybe the testing will be just those areas where he does well, but there'd be other tests that could be added that would point out problems. So if he didn't qualify with their testing, I would just encourage you to go further and talk with more people, or call psychologists at different organizations and see what they would suggest. I'd encourage you to not stop.
I'm not gonna stop. Thank you so much. I appreciate that suggestion. We did get him diagnosed, and I think that diagnosis will help a lot.
That should carry it. Yeah.
Yes. It's just kind of what to do, kind of like if I had that resource binder, because you do just kind of find out little bits here and there and there. And Janelle has been amazing at guiding us and everything like that. But even sometimes it's like, oh, you hear little pieces from other parents. I just kind of wish there was a know-it-all book, which I know doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I did put that in the chat for everybody. Autism Speaks actually does have a 100-day kit that answers some of those questions, as well as the Utah Parent Center has a whole program on autism or diagnosis. Now what? That does take you through those next steps on things.
Yeah.
It's not always specific, but it does have that. There is also a question if anybody is using medication, and if you guys, Toni responded that she's not doing it, but Lisa or Nicole, raise
So
your-
it's not medication, but we also see a gut health doctor, and they have suggested a metal detox that they said there's research that kids with autism, their gut is not correct, and they also hold on to a lot of heavy metals. So we just do a heavy metal spray. We stopped it for about 2 months to see if it was really helping. And it wasn't like he decreased, he just didn't progress. It's kind of like he stalled for a little bit, and then we started it, and we have seen more progression with that. And we do help with his diet, but for medication, we haven't been suggested any medication.
So with Bradley, and I hope I don't scare the other ones when I talk about this, he has been on some anti-anxiety, antidepressants, because you'll find as your child gets older, they're gonna start coming into hormones. And it was amazing, just like anger issues started coming out, some outbursts, some behavioral problems. And it's like any regular kid, right? You're like kind of like this sometimes. But when those hormones hit, we decided, and I really tried to stay clear of medications, but I came to the point of, if it's going to help my son, then why not? He currently isn't on any medications now because he is doing better. But again, as those hormones started to kick in, we really needed some of those anti-anxiety, antidepressants to kind of help him understand kind of what his body was doing. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again, the three of you, just amazing, and tons of kudos in the chat for you guys sharing your story. It's always great for us to remember that parent's perspective and help you guys advocate for your children. We are now going to turn it over to Ellie, and she is going to share our case. The three of you are more than welcome to stay on and hear this case and join us in our breakout sessions. But if you need to jump off, feel free to do that too. Thank you again. Ellie, I see you, so I'm going to pin you. And
thank you. We'll see how this sharing screen goes. Hopefully it works well. Let's see. All right. I just feel like I should echo everyone and thank the parents for sharing their stories. I teared up a little bit, and so I just appreciate your perspectives and having the courage to be here. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Ellie Smith, and I'm an OT at DDI Vantage Early Intervention. That's located in Salt Lake County, and I'm at the West site. A little background about me. I'm a new occupational therapist. I just graduated in May, but I've worked in early childhood development for about 15 years and 8 years in EI, but that was very, very part-time when I was in grad school. Like I said, I'm in early intervention. The child that I'm presenting on today is about 1 year old and was born at 31 weeks. Mom mentioned to me that her main concern was that she's drinking 4 to 5 ounces every 2 hours, and she prefers to drink more than eat. Her medical history is that she spent 49 days in the hospital. She underwent surgery for a laryngomalacia repair and was briefly on oxygen and had a feeding tube in the NICU. And she also had a grade 1 brain bleed. About the family speaks Spanish, and the parents have older children, but they do not live in the home. This family lives with their extended family, and the mom often babysits her nephew, who's about the same age as her daughter, and she often compares the two and worries about her daughter being behind. Mom is really engaged and is really good about following through on any strategies that are suggested. So here's the areas of concern. Number one is a low volume intake. Mom reports that baby has started to lose weight and she's concerned that she's resisting transitioning to solid foods. She just got a clinic-based feeding therapy evaluation, and she was referred to a swallow study, and she also has an appointment with an ENT. In general, mom is pretty anxious about her baby. The NICU was really traumatic for her and for the baby. She calls her doctor frequently, but the doctor's level of concern doesn't always match mom's level of concern. And then finally, communication gaps. Mom mentioned to me a while ago her concerns about feeding, and we talked about a referral to feeding therapy, and months ago she said, yes, it's happened, but didn't know when it was. And as her concerns grew, I called the clinic and they said they didn't have any record of a referral. So then when mom called her pediatrician to follow up, a new referral was sent, and that's how she was able to get in. But there was just such a huge gap. The goals that I'd like for today was to get strategies to support clinic-based feeding therapy. Like I said, I'm brand new to OT, and even though I have experience in child development, I don't know enough to provide the level of therapy that they need, but I do want to make sure I'm supporting what the clinic is offering. I also want to make sure I'm empowering mom at a good level so that her concerns can be addressed by the pediatrician, but also to reduce her anxiety, just to validate her and support her, and just kind of support her through the anxiety. The main barrier, I would say, is the language barrier with the medical professionals. Her pediatrician doesn't speak Spanish, and the feeding therapist doesn't speak Spanish. So those are my concerns. A little additional information, things that I've already tried was to encourage mom to call the nurse line rather than just the pediatrician, to help her figure out, and I helped her figure out what number to call. One time I was in the home and she had called the pediatrician and they said, would you like to talk to the nurse? And she said, no, I'll just wait to talk to the pediatrician. But her concern was pretty acute. And so I talked her through, like, actually, it's probably a good idea to talk to the nurse, and this is why it's good. I also provided a handout in Spanish called power packing, that's specific to increasing calories to mom, and encourage her to talk to Vic and her pediatrician about how to implement that. She also just recently got enrolled in Early Head Start, and she is followed by the University of Utah neonatal follow-up program. So 2 or 3 things that I'd love to hear about from the group would be if you have any resources in general for feeding in Spanish, and if there's parent support groups or information in general for parents in Spanish, and then kind of things to watch out for when kids are starting to transition from liquids to swallow or feeding in general, so that a referral can be made sooner. I guess I'm just disappointed that I didn't catch it sooner. Like if things fell through the cracks with a pediatrician, I wish I could have been more aware so that I could have facilitated that. So I think that's my blank slide. So those are the 2 or 3 concerns. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, if not, we are going to do breakout sessions. So Kate and Kirsten, so you guys will both be in separate rooms, and you guys are going to tackle the resources for feeding in Spanish. Crystal and Pat, you're both in a room together, If you guys will tackle parent support group or information in Spanish. And then Heather, if your group will tackle red flags to watch out for with transitioning from liquids to solids. I'm going to go ahead and open all those rooms, and then Ellie, we'll try to rotate you through all the breakout rooms.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
As everybody's joining back on, if the survey is in the chat, if you'll just take a minute and complete the survey, we'd really appreciate that. It just gives us valuable information. It will be followed up in the post email as well. We are at time, so we can't go over anybody's ideas, but as you know, the recommendations are always shared on Canvas. So if you ever want to go back and look at those, please look at the Canvas page. Hub team members, if you will have them sent to Kate, your notes so that she can compile them. We'll send those out to Ellie in the after those all get compiled. Our next session will be May 3rd. So please register for that, and everybody enjoy your afternoon. Thank you very much.